Hello and welcome back to Vidyarthee Education. In this video, we will be discussing current affairs for January 11th of 2025. It is important for all the competitive exams. Without wasting any time, let's begin. So first topic. 2024 was the first year to breach global warming limit, show data. So this article is from the Hindu, page number 10. So we'll be discussing what has happened, how the global warming limit has been breached this year, the previous year, 2024. So first, let's understand the context behind this. Why is it in news? So 2024, it marked the first year when mean global temperature rose 1.5 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial levels. So this data was produced by Copernicus Climate Change Service. So let's understand the global temperature insights. So first, the pre-industrial levels or the pre-industrial baseline. It is from 1850 to 1900. Okay. Now the global temperature serves as a benchmark for climate goals. Okay. Now the Paris Agreement goals, it wants to limit, or it has the idea to limit the warming to 2 degrees Celsius. Okay. With efforts to stay below 1.5 degrees Celsius. Okay. Now at 15.1 degrees Celsius, now 2024 became the warmest year in recorded history since 1850. Now this year temperature was 0.72 degrees Celsius above the 1991 to 2000 average and 1.6 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial levels that we discussed, that it should be below 1.5 degrees Celsius, but this year it went above it to 1.6 degrees Celsius. Okay. So let's understand some climatological trends. Now the past 10 years, like 2015 to 2024, it was the warmest. Okay. Now for 11 months in 2024 itself, the global monthly temperature exceeded the 1.5 degrees Celsius. So out of the 12 months, 11 months were above the 1.5 degrees Celsius threshold. Now also the sea surface temperature or the SST. Now in 2024, it had a record high average of 20.87 degrees Celsius, which is again 0.51 degrees Celsius above the 1991 to 2020 average. Okay. Now SST peaked in January to June 2024. Okay, with a minor declines in the second half of the year, but it again, we can say that it peaked. So let's understand the role of El Nino in this global temperature crisis. So El Nino, now this event, it is actually the warming of central equatorial Pacific. It is a warming of central equatorial Pacific. Okay, now it contributed to record-breaking temperature, obviously. Now it began in June 2023 and extended into 2024. So June 2023 to 2024, the El Ninos, it extended. Okay. Now implications of this rising temperature. Now in short term, a single year at 1.5 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial levels does not imply permanent breach, but signals a point of no return. It signals a point of no return. Okay. Now in long term, high carbon emissions, it suggested a potential 2 degrees Celsius warming by 2050. Okay. So let's talk about the developing economies. Now the developing economies, the increased climate disasters and rising cost of adaptation and mitigation. Now the developing country economies are facing challenges about the rising cost of adaptation and mitigation purposes. So it is it is an implication of the rising temperatures. Now what are the key challenges? Let's see. Now first, COP29. Where was it held? Baku, Azerbaijan. Okay. Now there it said that it was discussed that there was a failure to agree on a financial package for mitigating carbon emissions. Nobody agreed to this idea. Now, lack of global consensus on financial aid could hinder the mitigation efforts, obviously, mitigation efforts and adaptation to frequent disasters. Now, relating to this, let's understand some static information for this context. The Paris Agreement. Paris Agreement, it was in 2015. Okay. Now, its aim was to hold the global average temperature below 2 degrees Celsius and pursue efforts to limit it to 1.5 degree. Okay. Now, El Nino phenomenon, like we discussed, it is a periodic warming of the equatorial Pacific Ocean. Now, it significantly impacts the global temperature and weather patterns. Okay. So these are the static information we need to keep in mind when discussing this global temperature crisis. Okay. So let's solve the question. Now, with reference to the global warming and climate change, consider the following statements. The 1.5 degrees Celsius temperature increase above the pre-industrial levels in a single year signifies a permanent breach of the global climate boundary. Second statement says the El Nino phenomenon contributes to temporary spikes in the global temperatures. Third, sea surface temperatures, that is known as the SSTs, have consistently decreased since 1990 due to international climate agreements. So which of the statements given above is or are correct? Now solve this question and comment it below. We also have a mains question for answer writing practice. The recent breach of 1.5 degree warming threshold highlights the urgency for ambitious climate action. Discuss the implications of this milestone for developing economies and the challenges in achieving global climate goals. Okay. So let's move on to the next topic. Now, selection process for Chief Election Commissioner. So this article is from the Indian Express and it is in page number 1 and 2. Go check it out, read it, and then understand this topic. So first, what are the key highlights from this article? First is obviously the new appointment procedure. Okay. Now, the Chief Election Commissioner and the other election commissioners appointment, conditions of service and terms of office Act 2023. It's a very long thing. Just remember the CEC and other EC Act 2023. It introduces a new process for selecting the CEC and the ECs. Now, the traditional practice of appointing the senior most election commissioner as CEC has been replaced. So previously, the senior most was appointed as the CEC, but now this has been replaced. So now let's understand the search and selection committee. Okay. Now the search committee, it is headed by the Minister of Law and Justice. Okay. It prepares a panel of 5 candidates and the members include 2 officers of secretary rank. 2 officers of secretary rank or higher. Okay. Now the selection committee, it comprises of Prime Minister, a cabinet minister, which is also appointed selected by the Prime Minister. So a cabinet minister and a leader and the leader of opposition LOP in Lok Sabha. Okay. Now they can choose from the panel or consider other eligible. They are given, these five candidates are given for selection, but they can also add their own choices other than these 5 candidates. Okay, understood? Now the eligibility. Now the eligibility of the candidates, it must be the current or former secretary level officers. Okay, now the eligibility should be current or former secretary level officers. Now what is a backdrop? Now, the change prompted by the Supreme Court directives on curbing executive dominance in appointments. Now, the earlier essay mandated a committee with the PM, LOP, Chief Justice of India to advise the President. So, previously, this selection that we're saying, this selection committee, it did not have a cabinet minister. But instead of cabinet minister, it had the Chief Justice of India, okay, to advise the President. Now, the new act excludes this. It excludes the CJI from the process. Okay, understood? So previously we had CJI, but now we have this cabinet minister in place of CJI. Okay. Now the implications. It opens up the possibility of selecting candidates outside the EC, obviously. And it also ensures the process is more inclusive but raises concerns over potential politicization. First, when we had PM, CJI, and LOP, we had three different opinions. Okay, it was avoiding the politicization. But now when CJI is replaced by the cabinet minister and he is also selected by the PM, so there's a chance of what we can say, politicization or partiality. There's a chance. We can't say it is going to happen, but there's a chance. So it is 2:1 possibility rises. The former CE OP Rawat warns of risk of the commission's credibility. So there's a chance, like what? There's a risk of the credibility behind selection committees, selection criteria, and all the selected candidates. The pending legal challenge. The Supreme Court is set to hear petitions in February 2025 challenging the exclusion of SCJI. So there was a petition filed that why was CJI excluded from this? So this petition will be heard in February 2025. Okay. Now, relating to this, let's understand the static information. The Election Commission of India. First, the Election Commission of India. It is Article 324 of the Indian Constitution, and it is responsible for conducting free and fair elections. It comprises of CEC and 2 election commissioners. Okay, CEC, 1 CEC and 2 election commissioners. Okay. Now, what is the significance of CEC? It ensures the independence of the election commission, and it also acts as a custodian of electoral integrity. Okay, understood? Very good. Now let's solve the question. Now consider the following statements regarding the selection process of the Chief Election Commissioner and the election commissioners in India. The Chief Election Commissioner and Other Election Commissioners Act 2023 mandates the inclusion of Chief Justice of India in the selection committee. The search committee prepares a panel of 5 names for the selection committee to consider. Now, current or former secretarial office level officers are eligible for appointment as CEC or ECs. Okay, now which of these statements given above is or are correct? Answer it in the comment section. Now we also have a mains question. The recent changes in the appointment process of the Chief Election Commissioner and the election commissioners marks a significant shift in ensuring independence and inclusivity, but pose new challenges to institutional credibility. Discuss. So let's move on to the next topic. The California wildfires, role of climate, Santa Ana, winds, and the climate change. It is from the Indian Express, page number 14. What are the highlights of this? The impacts of wildfires. Okay, let's understand the impact of wildfires. What are the impacts? The death toll from the wildfire, the affected areas, Los Angeles, and then the destruction it caused. Thousands of acres of land, streets, and buildings destroyed. Now the evacuation, over 2 lakh residents has been displaced. Okay, now the major ongoing fires. We have the Palisades fire. It is largest. It destroyed over 17,000 acres, almost 6% contained. Now the Eaton fire. It burned around 10,000 acres, no containment. And other fires, let's say the Hearst fire, Lydia fire, and many more. They burned about 300 to 1,000 acres each. Okay. Now, what is the role of Santa Ana winds? Let's understand the role of Santa Ana winds. Now, the origin. If we look at the origin, it is caused by high pressure buildup over the Great Basin and low pressure over California coast. Okay. Now the characteristics: hot, dry winds, humidity often below 10%, and increase wildfire vulnerability by drying vegetation. The seasonal patterns typically blow from October to January. Okay. Now the influence of climate change. Now record-breaking heat. It was the hottest June, July, and second hottest October. Okay, in California. Rainfall deficit, no rainfall since July. And then we can also say the increasing wildfire risk, and the fire weather days have doubled. Fire weather days have doubled since 1970s, and a 66 to 90% increase in fire weather days. Now let's understand some static information related to this. Now we talked about Santa Ana winds. It is the natural wind patterns influencing the Southern California's climate and wildfire risk. The wildfire season in California, traditionally speaking, it peaks between May and October, but has been prolonged due to the climate changes. So let's solve a question. Consider the following statements regarding wildfires. Wildfires are influenced by both natural factors like wind patterns and human-induced climate change. Okay. The Santa Ana winds are specific to the northern hemisphere and are known for increasing the humidity in forest areas. Increased global temperatures and the prolonged dry season had contributed to more frequent and intense wildfires worldwide. Now, which of the statements given above is or are correct? Now, let's look at the mains question. The increasing frequency and intensity of wildfires in California reflect the interplay of natural and anthropogenic factors. Examine the role of climate patterns and climate change in exacerbating the wildfires globally. Okay. So this was all for today's video. Hope you liked it. Do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. And we are available on other social media sites like Telegram, Instagram, and WhatsApp. You can also visit our website to have to get your hands on the weekly magazines, monthly magazines, and everything else. We have it on our website. All the links are in the description. Make sure you visit them. So we'll meet you in the next video. Till then, keep learning and stay curious.